to present my research topic on food and tourism about the development of food tourism in Thailand. As we know from the morning session that the key speaker in the morning mentioned about the global perspective of food on global aspect or international aspect. So then, in this afternoon session, I would like to take you to look inside in the deeper view of local or domestic aspect of food influencing tourism development of Thailand. In this case, we have 5 important keywords to address here. There are food, human, culture, consumption, that then lead to tourism. Okay, so the first bird eye view for me, we have to look at the background about Thailand and tourism development has root deeply. At first, as I can remember, we have the first campaign of TAT Thailand Tourism Year in 1987 with many activities and many tourism campaigns to promote international tourists and domestic tourists to Thailand. And then tourism growth in Thailand has sprung for many years. In spite of struggle for tourism growth due to several kinds of crises, as we know, tsunami, political turmoil, epidemic, and others. And then, after several crises, we still can see positive aspect for Thailand tourism as because moderate travel expenditure of tourists, convenience in infrastructure students supporting tourism development and tourism enterprises, and unique and variety of culture, custom, and traditions. This is like what the 3 speakers in the morning speak about exoticness and uniqueness of Thai culture. And then, as well as the time we see the positive aspect, we can see limitations that sometimes increase in tourism markets among the neighboring countries create strong competition, as in Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, and Laos. And then another problem comes from repetitive internal and also external problem pushing away tourists, as I mentioned before about natural disaster and political crisis. And so and so. As tourism developed, we can observe many evidences that we can see cultural and natural resources deterioration resulted from tourism development, especially from the mass tourism development. In this case, the policy for Thai government in tourism is that we can see effort of limiting the impacts occur from mass tourism industries, as in many countries that you can see that when mass tourism grows, a lot of several tourism resorts usually decrease or incline. And then we can observe an awareness for development the new ways of special interest tourism or alternate tourism, which aim for a small group of tourists with less impact. For example of this, I can show you some examples for this alternative tourism, such as agro, sport, medical and health, adventure, business, cultural, cruise, and then what we are talking today, food tourism. So, what do we know about tourism? Food tourism is some kind of special interest tourism aimed at experiences gained from food consumption and visitation to the food website. So, for example, When you go to the country or rural area, you visit livestock farm, fishery farm, food production factories, vineyards, orchard. That is the kind that we can call food tourism. And then its ultimate aim for this is to enable tourists to try exotic food that in the morning associate Professor and talk about exoticness. Something that might be different from those in daily life. In this case, we might expect that we travel for very far away and then taste the same thing as we were at home. So we want to taste exotic or something strange. Something that might be belong to local dishes. So and so. Then we can see the benefits of this tourism that in addition to food consumed in touristic sites, food is usually taken away as souvenir, as we do when we go traveling to a provincial area. We usually buy local food at home for our family, friends, and lovers, and so on. In a global case, the prominent example for this kind of food tourism reflect at France, which has been regarded as famous destination for food tourists. In this case, I can suppose that the idea for food tourism originated from France. Because we can see evidence that several tour programs are arranged for visiting vineyards, tasting unique wine and food producers such as cheese and cuisines. And then this concept spread away from France to many countries. And I think in Thailand, Thailand influenced from this kind of tourism too. So when we look at the Thailand case for food tourism, I can exemplify you about the first one that you might know really well at the Yellow Road. This is the street where many people go for delicious food, some for buying food ingredients, materials, condiments, and so on. And then in municipalities, everyone in Bangkok is now know very well about Don Bai River Market in Nakhon Pathom province, which is the river market consists of many shops for selling delicious food belong to local. And then other examples may be markets for local food products such as Normal Market in Chonburi and Warorot Market in Chiang Mai. I suppose that everyone here knows this place very well. And then, in addition to these places, we can also observe some kind of food festival that can be easily seen in Thailand at present throughout the year, from January to December, such as the famous vegetarian festival at Phuket in October, the grilled pork festival at Trang, the sweet tamarind festival at Phetchabun, or fruit festival at Prachinburi, Rayong, and Chanthaburi, and so on. In this case, as I try to count the number of food festivals, I can tell you one thing, that this kind of festival have increased in each year, and so many of them, because the local authority trying to build some kinds of attraction to attract the tourists. Then some of the easy way is to create food festival. And then the important remark from this thing that we might see some negative impact from tourism growth. And then tourism demand usually result in changes of ordinary cultural fabrics and then cultural deterioration due to a need in response to the tourist need. As the speaker in the morning said that original or ordinary Thai food has been adapted in its ingredient, its procedure of cooking process in order to satisfy the tourist need. For example, we can see decrease in sweet, decrease in sugar, and decrease in oil-related ingredients, or so on. And then another important remark from this kind of tourism, we can see that tourism development has been pressed in response with widespread consumer culture. This might be the most influencing factor pushing the tourists away from Bangkok or in urban area to seek pleasure in traveling in rural or community or provincial. And then, from the aspect of consumer culture, the individuals are motivated to seek pleasures and experiences fulfillment through consumption. This kind of consumption can take any form and many kinds, that's for sure, including tourism-related activities, because when you go traveling in any places, you might or you have to consume products, food, clothes, souvenir, and so on, to fulfillment, to satisfy your pleasure, to decrease your stress from living in the city. So, what I expect from this research, the first one is to explore a relationship between food, human, and culture related to tourism aspect. And another is to understand the role of consumer culture towards growth of food tourism development in Thailand. So we will start from the fundamental concept that interconnect with another, and then we can end up with this concept relating to tourism. At first, in cultural or anthropological aspect, we have the aspect about food and human that we might see the controversial issues among food from social and biological perspective, because as we know that in biological or scientific perspective, these perspectives seek to clarify that human need a certain amount of nutrition and any kind of beneficial factors, whereas the cultural aspect teach us what we have to eat, what we have to drink, and what we have to have for eating habits that might usually conflict with one another. So, in terms of nutritionist, culture is most often viewed as impediment to the goals of nutrition. For example, we can see that the Ministry of Public Health try to eliminate or try to change a local resident point of view about eating and health habits, such as you can't eat raw food, you can't eat anything unbeneficial to your health, and so on. And then, from this aspect, in relating to food with human, the anthropological views on the symbolic nature of food and eating practice must be addressed here. And then, we can see the prominent evidence that the experience of eating is intertwined with experiences of close contact with the food provider and food consumer, especially in terms of emotion and sensation aspect. So at this point, eating is not only just ingesting food in your mouth, but it's the interconnection of relationship between food provider and food taker. Sometimes what Professor Natana stated in this morning is that when you come to the usual food shop or restaurant, you usually expect to taste the same food from the same shelf. That is the relationship between the food provider and food taker. And then we have another aspect from about food in modern, postmodern approaches. That is at present. There is a change in concept that emphasis on how knowledge and meanings of food are produced and reproduces. Because as the society has dynamics, sometimes the meanings of things, especially meanings of food, can change upon the flowing of time. Further core concept from food in postmodern perspective is that we have to explore the discourse of languages and practices about food, eating, and embodiment. That's some kind of things in mind of the individual, such as what each people defines about good food is different from another, and in this approach also gives an interest on how we interpret and convey to others our sensual experiences in preparing, touching, and eating food. So, in this point, it is also noted that food is not only digesting, but everything you do about your eating process and whole process, every step and every process has a meaning in cultural terms, such as the way you pick up your spoon, the way you pick up your forks, the way you see each other when you eating, and another. For example, change of meanings in sugar from its first time in Europe and later meanings in the early industrial revolution ages that Professor Anand mentioned in the morning. That sometimes the meaning of food can change over time, as in the 17th century, sugar has been regarded as worth as gold or precious metal. And then, at present, we can see that sugar is a cheap material for every household. That is the meaning that can change over time. And then, in postmodern approaches, we can see that food can be transformed to be some kind of commodity. As we can see that consumption is the important means of constructing subjectivity and indicate membership of social groups. So what you eat can define your groups, your status, and yourself also. As commodity, food is not consumed only for its fundamental functions, but because of the cultural value that surround it. So, the way you choose your lunch, whatever you eat a bowl of noodle beside the street, or you eat a noodle in the department store. This can symbolize your status and yourself also, not include money that goes from your pocket. So, when food is consumed symbolically, its taste is often of relatively little importance. So, sometimes taste might not be important as sometimes the speaker mentioned about the ambience and the surrounding that might be more important than the original taste. Sometimes eating some kind of fried rice in Central World Emporium or Siam Paragon might it be as delicious as you make it at home, but this can enhance your status, yourself, and embodiment your experiences of eating in the fine department store. Significantly is the role and effect of commercial advertising in creating an image around food. What is undeniable for us is that at present we are influenced so much from the impact of advertising from many kinds of medias, such as televisions, radios, printed, and many. And then this will lead us to the next step of lifestyle, consumer culture, and food that. Then the world of goods and the principle of structuration are central to the understanding of contemporary society. So the goods have meanings not only for its fundamental functions, but for the mental functions. Mundane and everyday consumer goods become associated with luxury, exotica, and beauty with their original or functional use is difficult to decipher. In this case, we might know that in our modern society, the meaning of food is floated among its fundamental function as we know. In this case, television especially produces a selfish images and information threatening our sense of reality. It's very hard to distinguish between real and unreal from television. And that it's this like what Godela said that we live in everywhere already in an aesthetic hallucination of reality. The death of social, the loss of the real, leads to a nostalgia for the real. I like these sections because this concept linked me to the tourism need and tourism demand. What we can expect in living in urban area draw us away from the urbans to the country, to the local, to the community, where we hope to sense the real experience of life or experience of life in the past as we can see in the soul of the ground. So it's about tourism of taste, consumption, and experiences that roles of food in tourism industry has been widely enhanced due to the media influences. Today, we have many kinds of media focused on travel and travel, tourism, and food consumption. In case of magazines, I can find about almost more than 10 magazines mentioning about food tourism, such as Krua, Bistro, Gourmet, and so on. And then, in addition to magazines, TV shows, radio programs highly focus on food and its origin, connecting food with tourism. What we see in the television program, or what we hear from the radio, or what we read from the magazines, draw us from Bangkok to the area. where we can test the exotic food, the local food. And then we can see that there is a vast growth in attention to food as an area of interest for tourism study. The reason for that lies in the fact that tourism was the solution for the local community to diversify their economic base. This is when that, in case of economic crisis or economic decline, the most prominent way or the most important way for the local community to see their benefits or income is to diversify their activities into tourism related. And so food and restaurant were highly ranked in terms of what was more enjoyable about tourist destination. From this, in fact, the statistic shows that food is the main primary expenses for tourists when visiting in tourist destination. So this, in this case, we can see important remark for this that differences between the tourists consuming food as a part of travel experience and food tourists. Because someone mightn't agree with me that in this case we might assume that everyone go to the tourist destination is a food tourist. The answer is no, because when we define the word food tourism is here. Food tourism refers to the visitation to primary and secondary food producer, food festival, restaurant, and specific locations for which food testing and or experiencing the attribute of specialized food production region and the primary motivating factors for travel. This must be underlined to distinguish the difference between the travel and the food tourist, because when you define yourself as a food tourist, it means that you want to go to the tourist attraction for the main purpose to taste food. For example, when you go to Chonburi, in your thoughts, you might expect to swim or to visit temples, nightclubs, and so on. But your intention is to eat the exotic food of Chonburi. From this definition, more important remark about this is that the need for food is the primary factor in influencing travel behavior and decision making as a form of special interest tourism. So when you decide to go to Yawara Road, the intention for you is to taste the noodle, seafood, Chinese food, or buying ingredients for cooking, not buying gold or making a merit at the Chinese temple anymore. And that this concept can easily reflect the consumer for whom interest in food is a form of a serious leisure. That is very important to be a food tourist. You must take for granted food-related activity into serious leisure. The first intention for you to visit touristic places. And also, we can see significance of food tourism lie in the fact that the first one is this kind of tourism can reinforce the local food economies because local food have high potential for the visitor, for the tourist to buy as the souvenirs. And the second is that food tourism can encourage the conservation of food and biodiversity. And biodiversity. Sorry, because actually the local community can think that if they can maintain the food as it used to be, then the tourists will come and their local income will increase. And that the last one is food tourism also helps sustaining local identities by maintaining their local food products. In conclusion, what I can get from this research is that I can see the vast influences of consumer culture toward a process of commoditization of cultural products. Because as we can observe many evidence at present, many communities, especially local markets that in some time before this usually have been abandoned. But as the trend for the present sprung up, the ordinary or the local market have been revitalized, and then the tourists come in, and the income of the local community increase. And then tourism has been used in relation to the notion of nostalgia and self-indulgence, as I mentioned before. And the last thing is that, in fact, a balance is needed between needs to develop and efforts to preserve the cultural authenticity of meanings. This is very important when we talk about the impacts of tourism, not only for food tourism but also all kinds of tourism. That what we have to know is about what is authenticity for the tourists or for the local community members, and is it necessary to change all things to respond with the tourism need? And that food tourism in Thailand contributes interesting potential for further benefits with cooperation from every involving stakeholders. In fact, this is just some part that I selected from my research. If you're interested in this, you can discuss with me later. So I would like to thank the organizing committee again, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thanapu. You can see how important the food and education role in the tourism industry in this country. Is there any questions that you would like to ask? Yes, this property is yours. Yes.
In these local situations where tourism is happening, who do you see as being organisers? Is it tourist companies coming in? Is it like child of someone who runs a market stall that comes back and changes the local community? Or is it who's creating this food tourism on the ground and on location?
Again, please use the microphone.
You were talking about the development of food tourism in rural places. Who do you
do you see from your experience is doing the main organising of this? Who is creating that dynamic? Is it a local authority? Is it a producer of, say, farm goods or something? Or, something I've seen some places is children of market traders have come back from Bangkok and they see what the potential of their local area is, and they've changed it through educating the locals about what their place could be, that it's not ordinary, that it's actually special. What's your experience of the main driver of making this? Is it tour companies looking for special niches? Who's creating these places?
Sorry for inconvenience. In Thailand, it takes many forms for the initiator for tourism development in rural area. In many cases, as one in my PhD dissertation at Dambai River Market in Nongpakachong, the local leaders have many great influences in establishing the pioneering role for developing the local market for tourism demand. For example, the chief of the village, the abbots, and